Morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We're on chapter 10, verse 1, the death of Nadav and Avihu, the sons of Aaron. And we left off yesterday just mentioning that it's very difficult to understand what the issue was in the first place, just maybe to highlight some of the clues in the psukim, and we'll see kind of where the Mefarshim go with them. So first of all, Nadav and Avihu are referred to as the sons of Aaron. Did we not yet know they were the sons of Aaron? There's something in here about their lighting the fire with the incense. That's clear. It says that they brought a foreign flame. That's clearly something about the picture. And then it specifically says that God had not commanded. Is that an explanation of why it's a foreign flame? Is that something in addition? And then one more clue is if you look in verse 8, there's a new section immediately following the aftermath of the death of Nadav and Avihu, and there's a very specific instruction regarding that the Kohanim should not drink wine before they're going in to serve in the Mishkan. Is that connected to the story of Nadav and Avihu? So the emphasis of there being Aaron's sons, calling it a foreign flame, calling it something that wasn't commanded, and is there any significance to the juxtaposition to the prohibition in terms of coming into the Mishkan while intoxicated? Let's see the Sforno. Sforno pasuk Aleph. Vaychu shnei bnei Aaron Nadav Avihu ishmach taso. Chashvu shekmo she'achar tamid asher bo tishre shchina ka'amra olas tamid adoros lechem Pesach o moed lefnei Hashem asher voed lachem shama tavo aktores kach hayaroi lahaktir ktores chadash ata ali galos kvod Hashem o kol ha'am ba'al yiridas ha'esh v'lachein hikrivu lefnei Hashem b'mizbach ha'pnimi. Okay, this is really interesting. So first of all, I mean, gosh, if there was no instruction to light the incense, and there were other instructions about the incense, but if there was no instruction to light the incense at this moment, why in the world would they do it? What were they thinking? So the Sforno says, I'll tell you what they were thinking. The incense is lit on a daily basis after the Tamid offering, after the daily offering. When the Psukim introduced the idea of the Korban Tamid, it specifically talks about, God says, it's the place that I will appear to you there. So the Sforno says what's implied by that juxtaposition is the bringing of the daily offering is a merit for the divine presence to be revealed. Okay, so when they do a mitzvah that's a merit for the divine presence to be revealed, the appropriate response is to light the Ketores, to light the incense afterwards. So the Sforno says they sat there and they thought to themselves, look, there was this flame that came down to consume the offerings. At the end of verse 23, it said that the glory of God appeared to the entire nation. There was a revelation of God's presence. So if in the context of the daily offering, they're supposed to light the incense because it brings out the revelation of God's presence, this was a unique circumstance of the revelation of God's presence. Maybe they're also supposed to light the incense. An interesting idea. V'gam im hayaroi lasos kach im hayamutzuvim bazeh. And now this Sforno says, you know what? Even if it was the right thing to do, chatu la'asoso ata. They still sinned in doing it at this point. Why? Asher lo tziva osam, that he didn't command them. Ka'amram zal ervin perak hadar shahoru halacha b'fnei Moshe Rabban. Says the Sforno. The problem was that they did something which he did not instruct them to do. Who is he? So you might have said, he is God. They did something that God had not instructed them. The Sforno says, he is Moshe. Who are they to make such decisions? Moshe Rabbeinu is the prophet of God. Moshe Rabbeinu is the ultimate teacher of the Torah. If they had a novel concept as to what would be appropriate to do, you know what they should do? They should think it through, and if they think it makes a lot of sense, they should walk over to Moshe and say, hi, Moshe, we were thinking that this made sense. What do you say? And they didn't do that. So it's very interesting. So the Sforno says, first of all, the Sforno gives a very strong rationale for why they did it. And he says, even if theoretically they were right, they were wrong in how they, and maybe they weren't theoretically right, we don't know, but they were wrong in how they went about it for sure, because they should have consulted with Moshe Rabbeinu. And because of that, they were punished. That's what the Sforno says. let's go to the Orachaim. Orachaim, Vayikhu v'nei Aaron Nadav Avihu. Yirtze lohodia makom ta'usam. Says the Orachaim. Pasuk is trying to convey to us where their error was coming from. Shula beis sibos. Their error was emanating from two different reasons. Number one, echad liosam kohanim she aleihem tavos avoda v'zeu shehischil lomar b'nei Aaron. So one thing was they said, gosh, we're Kohanim and we have this desire to serve God and we have this unique role to serve God. And therefore they kind of stepped too far across the line. But the Sforno, the Orachaim says that's why they're referred to as the sons of Aaron. Of course, we know they're the sons of Aaron. But part of the reason for their error was because of their unique station as Kohanim, as the sons of Aaron. They thought, well, this is coming to us. The second point is they were people of unique distinction, not just because of their position, but because of who they were. They were considered equal to Moshe and Aaron. There's a medrash that talks about this. There's a quote from the Zohar that talks about how unique they were, that they were considered akin to Moshe and Aaron. That's why it's specifically refers to them by name here. It's an interesting thing to think about. There are four sons of Aaron: Nadav, Avihu, Elazar, and Isamar. So if I were to ask you, so who were the quote-unquote better sons of Aaron? Many of us would say, that's easy. Elazar and Isamar, they're not the ones who messed up. Nadav and Avihu messed up. The Orachaim says, well, maybe part of the whole issue here is they went out on a limb, doing something they weren't supposed to do, but they had reason to think it was within their purview to do it. A, they were Kohanim, but B, they were people of unique distinction in their own right. And Elazar and Isamar weren't. So Elazar and Isamar were Kohanim, but they didn't have this unique personal distinction. So clearly, according to the Orachaim, their error was because, again, they kind of reached, in terms of their decision-making process, presumably, they reached above where they were at. But they had reason to reach so high. It was still an error, though. So the Orachaim and the Sforno are coming from different places in the Pasuk, but they seem to be pointing in a similar direction. Now let's go to the Kli Yakar. Kli Yakar Pasuk Aleph. Vayakrivu l'fnei Hashem Sarah asher lo tziva osam. B'muhus chadzeh rabu adeos biyalkut masik b'shem Ramani al shenichnesu shtuya yayin. So there's all kinds of ideas cited as to what their sin was. There's something cited in the Medrash that it's because they came in having drunk wine. There's an opinion that says it's because they came in without having appropriately washed their hands and feet for service in the Mishkan. Some say it was because they weren't wearing the robe. The robe is part of the garments of the Kohen. They weren't wearing it. That's a big deal to come in and do service without wearing the appropriate garments. Some say it's because they didn't have sons. Some say it's because they didn't marry. Some say it's because they made an executive decision about the halacha without consulting with Moshe. Some say it's because they said, gosh, when are Moshe and Aaron going to die already? So the two of us can be in charge. Some say that this was retribution for Aaron's sin with the golden calf. It's based on a pasuk from elsewhere. All kinds of opinions as to what the sin was of Nadav and Avihu and why they were punished. All of these opinions, there is foundation in some way for all of these opinions. He says, just look at the pasuk. They all seem to be wrong. As it says in the pasuk, "Vayakrivu l'fnei Hashem Sarah asher lo tziva osam shma minash lo hayo b'hem chet acher ki im zeh." The Kli Yakar says these are really interesting ideas, but look at the pasuk. The pasuk says they brought a flame that was foreign. How does that fit into any of these ideas? Is it the basic idea that we weren't supposed to light the incense? Isn't that the basic idea? Isn't that what it says in the pasuk? So it's very nice. There's proofs from this pasuk, there's proofs from that pasuk, but what about the pasuk that describes the sin? Okay, chalalai chovaspir lahamlitzbad koladeosalalu. So the Yakar says, therefore, it's really incumbent upon me to try to make sense of what's going on here. Vilomar shakulam matzulam smach min pasuk hazeh. Each of the wide range of opinions we just cited are all in one way or another emanating from this pasuk. Fisha kasha lahem, because it's difficult. It says in the pasuk, "V'nasnu b'nei Aaron kohanim eish shemitzvah lahavi min hadyot ve'eich yomar asher lo tzivah osam." At the beginning of Sefer Vayikra, it talks about that that the Kohanim should light a flame on the altar. So is it so bizarre that they lit a flame here? Is it so out of left field? Ve'ein lomer k'divrei Abarbanel shayil lahem likach eish haktoris mizbach ha'olah sharitzivu yizeh haya achrei mos b'nei Aaron v'sham ne'amar v'lokach malo machtal gach leish b'vnei Hashem. So the Abarbanel says it's not, the flame wasn't the problem. The source of the flame was the problem. They should have taken the flame from the altar on which the olah was brought. But he says that clarity only comes after these psukim. Okay, roll farish eish zarazu outside of zarus varemes al shar tvarim shenir masu be'eish zarus. So the Kli Yakar says all of these ideas from the midrashim and the like that explain the sin was this or that, it's all trying to come up with a novel idea in what eish zara means, what a foreign flame means. Because if it's to be taken literally, it just means they're not supposed to light a fire in the Mishkan. But there's an idea of the Kohanim lighting a fire in the Mishkan. So these Mefarshim and Midrashim come and say, it must be that this foreign flame is speaking metaphorically. If you say the problem is they came in having drunk, they say that what it means a foreign flame has to do with wine that burns inside a person like fire. So that the wine kind of lights a fire within them. How could they be punished for having come into the Mishkan having drunk? The instruction to not serve after having drunk wine, it comes after these psukim. So the Kli Yakar says, even though it was not an explicit violation of the pasuk, but the bottom line is they should have had the sensitivity to realize that it's inappropriate to come into the Mishkan having been drunk. There's certainly more in this Kli Yakar. We'll pick it up tomorrow, God willing. But again, we've begun the discussion as to what the sin was of Nadav and Avihu, and maybe even more significant, how the understandings of the sin are emanating from the pasuk. So we saw the Sforno, the Orachaim, and we saw the beginning of this Kli Yakar.